Da-da-da-da-da.
A year ago, we received a package in the mail when we were in Pittsburgh from our dear, dear friend, Marianne Lawrence. And we received another package this year from Marianne Lawrence and Tom. Thank you so much. We know what it is.
Is this gonna have pigs in it?
This is a box full of joy.
Yeah, sunshine.
This is sunshine.
California sunshine.
California sunshine. The most beautiful
look at that.
lemons in the whole world. Look at this, you guys. Is that amazing?
California
Does
lemons.
Does she love us
Fresh.
or what? Now see, if we were our son, we'd just start juggling them.
Yeah, but we're not gonna do that. Whoa,
So-
Marianne, thank you.
I've been waiting for these. I've known they were coming.
These are gonna do some good things.
Well, I'm gonna do something bad. But I found a recipe to not do
Bad?
it so bad.
What are you making? A lemon meringue pie.
No.
I love lemon
I
meringue
know
pies. You know. Now, my mom was Miss Lemon. I tell you what, if it could be made from lemon whatever, she made it.
I am making lemon
I think.
curd.
Oh.
My brother introduced it to me last year when we were at his home in DC. It was full of sugar, but I have now found a recipe. I found a recipe that calls for 2 cups of sugar, then one that found 1 cup of sugar, and one that called for 1/3 of a cup.
Much better.
I'm going to make lemon curd with 1/3 of a cup, and what we love to do with it is take a teaspoon of lemon curd and put it into our homemade yogurt. It's so good, isn't it?
Yeah, are we making some yogurt?
We've got to get some more milk.
Okay.
But we will do that too. Thank you, Marianne and Tom. We love you. Today is Cook Your Staples Day. What are staples? Staples are the food that goes with our meals. It's like our side dishes. It's the thing that makes the plate look full. It's the starch in our meals usually, or a good carbohydrate. Remember, we don't eat processed carbohydrates or refined carbohydrates. We eat carbohydrates that we process ourselves in our own kitchen. So today we're going to learn how to make lentils, whole barley, brown rice, I have 4 different kinds of beans here that are soaking. Black beans, red beans, butter beans, and anasazi beans, which are these beautiful beans. And these are like playing in what is it, the almond covered, chocolate covered almonds. That's what these are like playing in. They're so beautiful. And we're going to talk a little bit about steel cut oats. Even though they're not part of the staple of your main dish, they can be of your breakfast. So where are we going to start? We're going to start with lentils. Now lentils are kind of like the forgotten food that people like, oh, I don't like lentils. Lentils aren't good. Or I don't like the texture of them. Or wow, I've never had them before. Or what kind of recipes do you use them in? So we're going to talk about lentils. These are red lentils and green lentils. And I'm going to teach you how to cook them so that they are not mushy. When you're cooking any one of these, if you have a vegetable broth, a beef broth, a pork broth, a beef broth, any kind of broth that you have, and you can add it instead of just water, your flavor increases dynamically. I don't have enough broth for all of these today, so we're going to use mostly water, but I am telling you, if you can make one of these in a broth, the flavor is just incredible. Now, how do you keep your broths? I will show you. This is a chicken broth that I made September 30th. Today is the end of January. So I made it October, November, December, January, 4 months ago. So how do I use this? If I am making a large pot of soup or a large pot of beans and I just remembered, oh wow, I had broth I could have used, then I put a little bit of water in with whatever it is I'm making. I go set this into a hot sink of water for a few moments, take the lid off, turn it upside down, and let this whole solid ice cube kerplunk right down in my beans or in my soup. And as it melts, the flavor just increases. It's amazing. I have another broth that is not froze. This broth I just made this week. It is from chicken, and it's like chicken jello. It is just a gel. It's perfect. It's so amazing. The reason I know it's so amazing is I made a chicken rice dish, and I just had some brown rice left over, which is what we're trying to do now, because we're going to show you that you can make all of these meals when you have all of this stuff put away in your freezer for you. So I had some rice and I pulled it out, and I had some chicken and I put it in there, and I thought, well, what else can I put in? So I put in some carrots and I put in some cabbage and some onions. So I sauteed my onions and my cabbage together and put it in, and I thought, well, it just needs a little bit of liquid, but I don't want to put water in. What can I put in? And I remembered that I had this. So I took a spoon and scooped down a couple of spoons of this gelatin and put it in there. I cannot explain to you the flavor. It was so amazing. I actually had made it the first day without the gelatin. The second day of eating it, we had the gelatin in it, and Jim turns around and says, what is in this? 2 tablespoons of incredible chicken jello. That's what I call it. So you want to keep this on hand. I don't care if you only get this much. Keep it on hand. Put it in ice cube trays. Pull it out, pop it out, and put it into your different vegetables and staples that you are making, because it will make such a large difference. So today, as I'm doing my lentils, I am going to put a little bit of this gelatin in there. The first thing you want to do with almost every single grain you have is rinse it. So I am going to take 1 cup of dried lentils. And this one's going to be rainbow because they're both coming in. To my knowledge, there is not a difference in the flavor. So then I'm going to put it inside of my strainer and take my strainer over to the sink. And you can actually see the dirty water coming off of it. Now I'm going to put it into a bowl, a pan. It calls for 2 cups of water to 1 cup of lentils. So I'm going to scoop broth into my lentils to equal the rest of the amount, and pour that in. With lentils, we do not want to add the salt until we are completed cooking. Salt makes the lentils stay crunchy so that they don't get soft. The other thing that we want to do so that the lentils are not mushy is bring it to a simmer as fast as we can and then turn it down to low. That will cause the lentils not to split, and it allows them to just be soft but not mushy. So no salt. You can add any seasonings you want to right now. If you're going to add garlic or bay leaves or oregano or any kind of seasoning that you want to add right now, you can add that now. But just don't add the salt until it's completely done. So now I'm putting it on the stove. I'm going to put it on rather high so that it goes fast. Then I will reduce it to a gentle simmer and let it simmer for 25 to 30 minutes. Just tiny little bubbles, not big. If you have older lentils, they might take longer to cook. These are fine, and so I think they'll be great. You want to store your grains in a cool place. Over the past year, when we haven't had a kitchen or when we've been traveling or this or that, I've stored them in my freezer. They have stayed in there, that way they don't get rancid. I put my beans in there, I've put my rice in there. Everything has been in my freezer. Now when it's full of meat, I don't have room for that. So my garage is very cold, so that's a good place to store also. But right now during the winter, our kitchen does not get hot. It just gets barely comfortable. So I feel very comfortable storing all of them in my kitchen at this. Lentils are not just for soups. They can be cooked and seasoned and have just a small portion as a side dish. They can be used in salads. And I'm going to be sharing some of how to use all of these in actual recipes over the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. The next food that we're going to make is barley. Now, I love beef and barley soup in Campbell's soup as a child. That's the only way I had it. I never had barley any other way until I became an adult, until in the last few years, until I lived in Oregon by Bob's Red Mill and I started trying other grains. So there are two kinds of barley. The pearl barley has the endoderm removed from it. It is, so it doesn't have all the nutrients in it. Ours is wholest barley, but it hasn't had the endoderm removed. When I purchased this, I just purchased it to grind up and put into breads. I never realized that you could use it in so many other things. And so we're going to learn about some of those other things today. Now this is not wheat, but it does have gluten in it. So if you are a gluten-free person, then barley is off your limits of being able to have. Some people are able to tolerate barley when they can't tolerate wheat, so you'll just have to see how your body does with it. It's a really, really nutritious grain. It has selenium, magnesium, and phosphorus in it, and it is just a really tasty one. I have some incredible recipes that have to do with soups, salads, that I'm going to share with you again over the next few weeks on what to do with this barley that you're putting together to have. Pearl barley cooks much faster than whole barley, and pearl barley will give you more of almost a sauce to it. More of the starches come out. So if you want creamier soup, then that's the pearl barley. But this barley, the whole barley, you're going to take 1 cup of the barley, and 1 cup of the barley makes 3 cups of cooked barley. So that's what we're going to do today. And then we're going to take 1 cup and put it into 3 different containers. Now you can see that I've got this in my food saver bags, and that is the way I am going to be storing my cooked food also, and labeled and stuck in the refrigerator, in the freezer, with food saver bags, and then it will stay really well, and I don't have to have all of those plastic containers because these take up a lot of room, but they're also, I just don't have enough, but I do have enough bags, so that's what we're going to go with today. Whatever you have, you use. This is the lentils, and you can see it's getting pretty close to being able to boil there. I've got it pretty on a medium high, and as soon as it starts to boil, then we're going to put it on a simmer. Because I have an electric stove that responds to me long after I've turned it off, I'm going to turn this down to simmer now and let it simmer for 25 minutes. Barley, we're going to take 1 cup of barley and 3 cups of water and a little bit of salt, or any kind of broth that you wanted to instead of the water. A combination of water and broth. And then we are going to bring it to a boil and cook it. Because it's hulled, it actually is going to take 40 minutes. First thing we're going to do is wash our barley. Well, that made a splash. That's my broth. And this is my barley. The problem I may have here is that my pan might be a little bit too small, but it's what I've got right now because I'm going to be making something else in the other one. And barley has a tendency to foam up as it boils, so we'll keep an eye on it. I am going to give it that little pinch of salt. And I think I'm going to turn our lentils up just a little. I will give you a view of the lentils. As they're cooking here. Our next staple is brown rice. Now, there's so many different kinds of rice. I actually have some rice now that's a brown rice, quick cooking rice. I don't know what they've done to that rice to make it quick cooking, but this is an organic brown basmati rice, product of India. And I'm gonna do something with my rice that I've never done that was suggested in some of the recipes that I looked up, and that is to saute it in a little bit of olive oil to make it brown. Toast it first and then cook it. So we'll see. I have a rice cooker, and so that's what I always use. But lately I've just been throwing it on the stove. My rice cooker can take up to like an hour and a half, and this says it should take 45 minutes. So we're gonna test it out today and see if that's what it does. Our ratios for our rice are 1 cup of rice to 2 cups of water or broth, and a teaspoon of salt. Guess what we're gonna do first? You got it. We're gonna rinse our rice first. It's especially important with rice that we rinse because it has been found to have, like, I believe strychnine in it before. Now, I'm not gonna use this because this has holes in it that will cause it to fall out. So I'm gonna actually get a strainer to utilize. All right. When we were at the state fair this year, we got rice that somebody here locally is growing, and I'm like, you could grow rice? Sometimes I think our fields are boggy enough that we might be able to. So I've got a little bit of olive oil in here, and I'm going to put my rice in here. Rice does not store well long. That's why I always keep mine in a colder place. And there is a smell that you can smell with nuts and wheat and flour and rice and pasta. It's a rancid smell. And if you smell that, you don't want to eat it. That will help damage your body. And now this is starting to sizzle. You just want to do this until you smell a nutty flavor. It's not a necessary step. It just increases the flavor of the wheat, of the rice. I have this on almost completely high so that it does it quickly and I can keep track of it here. I don't have any broth left that's thawed enough to go into my rice, so I'm just going to be using rice water. But I will put some seasonings into it, which I'll show you afterwards. So I'm going to turn this all the way down to as low as it can go. This is boiling at a really good spot right now, so I'm going to turn it down so that it doesn't spew over. And we want it to go for 40 minutes. So I've got my eye on the clock. I do want to do a teaspoon of salt. And I have what's called Old World seasoning so I'm going to add some of that. It's paprika and celery salt and garlic salt and black pepper, parsley, dill, caraway seed, turmeric. All right, I'm going to go ahead and add my water. And put the lid on. What we're going to do is bring this to a boil and then turn it down low for 45 minutes. One of the most important things to do with rice when you are cooking it like this is to make sure that when you're done with your 45 minutes, you've checked it, you made sure it's fine, just leave the lid on it and let it set for 10 minutes, because that will help get the rest of the water that's in there, and it will make it so that it's really fluffy. To me, this feels like it's a little bit hard and that it needs a little bit more water. So I'm actually going to close this lid, which is the way I always cook it. So I just think it would have cooked better that way. If you've cooked your lentils with the lids on in the past, I would continue to do it. I'm just going to add a little bit of water to it and let it steam for a few more moments. Trial and error. This is doing beautifully over here. And this is boiling here, so this is going down to low. Rice is on low, lentils on low, barley on low. We have two things left to make. One is quinoa. So quinoa, if you're not familiar with it, it's a very ancient grain. When it first started, it was extremely expensive. It's still not cheap. This is actually from Costco. I can't remember how much it cost, but it was much cheaper. This one is pre-rinsed. Otherwise, you need to really rinse your quinoa because it has a bitter taste if you don't. So this is an organic, and it works. It works in so many things. My favorite way to use quinoa is for breakfast with just a scoop of quinoa on the plate, grilled vegetables that go over it with a soft egg oozing down the side. That's my favorite. There's salads you can make out of them. They're a good side dish. Anything you can do with rice, you can do with meat. It provides all of the essential proteins that you need that meat usually provides. This provides also. To make your quinoa, you're going to add 1 cup of quinoa to 1 3/4 cups of water or broth. 2 teaspoons of salt. Unless your broth is really salty, then don't do that. For this, we are also going to toast the quinoa before we cook it, just like we did the rice. All right, we're going to, I found a burner on the back of the stove here. My little burners are. We're just going to brown this to make it have a nuttier flavor. And then we'll add our water and our seasoning. Okay. Now, if you have a large family, you can make a whole bunch of this. I mean, a giant pot of it, and stick it in the freezer. And that way you're ready for all of your giantness that you have. We're going to bring this to a boil and then simmer it for about 15 minutes. Well, I apologize. I thought my camera was on and it wasn't. My lentils are out. I added my salt. I've put them into a container just like this to cool them down before I do anything else with them. Lentils, I will admit, are not my favorite, but I know they're really good for you. So I'm excited to make some of the recipes and share those with you in the coming weeks. I won't say days. so that you will know what to do with these lentils. This is what the barley looks like. It's nice, it's plumped up. It didn't get all of the liquid out, so it might be able to even take a little bit more cooking, but you can see that if you can't just throw barley into a soup and cook it in 5 minutes and it be done. Whole barley takes a lot longer than pearl barley, but it has a lot more nutrients in it. So now this is ready to cool and to be able to bag up and utilize in different soups and recipes that I'm going to be showing you in the next few weeks. Nice and fluffy. Wow, that's beautiful rice. Now I will divide that into 1 cup containers when it's cold and put it in my saver. This is our quinoa. Perfect. This one does just take 15 minutes. So all of these are going to cool down in the refrigerator, and then I'm going to bag them. I've prepared my bags. I've got my food here. I am now going to bag it up. The little pieces. This also helps with portion control, because if you look at a lot of the things that you can have in order to have your carbs, you only want to have a half a cup or a third of a cup or something like that. You don't want to have a full cup, because a full cup is like 2 or 3 servings. The last staple item that we're going to make right now is actually for breakfast. I'm going to take steel cut oats, 1 cup of them, and I'm going to put them in 3.5 cups of water that's already in here. To this, I am adding 1/4 cup of raisins, and I like golden raisins. And when you put them in here all night, even if you don't like raisins in your oatmeal, you should love this, because it plumps them up so that they don't even resemble raisins. They're so good. So they're going in there. A little bit of salt, and then I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of butter, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1 peeled cut up apple. Now this all goes into a crock pot. I use a smaller crock pot, and you want to put it on just before you go to bed, because you don't want it to cook more than 7 or 8 hours. So I've had mine before where it's cooked a little too much and it's a little bit hard to get out of the pan along the sides, so just kind of experiment with it. If you feel like next time you need to add a little bit more water, it would be really nice if my apples went in instead of down my dress. So it's daytime right now, but I'll set this on the counter and I'll have it ready to just plug in and go tonight. And then you wake up to a nice steaming bowl of the best oatmeal. It's so good. I can't even explain how good it is. If you're in a real hurry in the mornings and don't have time, have a whole dozen eggs in your refrigerator, all boiled already. In fact, you can even peel them already so they're all in a bag. And you can put this into a mug, pour some milk on it, grab a boiled egg, and be out the door. And then we are going to put a little bit of vanilla in it also, a teaspoon of vanilla. And that's all there is to it. 1 cup of steel cut oats, 3.5 cups of water, 1/4 cup to 1/2, depending on what you want, of golden raisins, 1 cut up peeled apple, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of vanilla. Put it in your crock pot, turn it on just before you go to bed. Wake up to a steaming bowl of oatmeal.
This is the next morning, and this is the lovely, lovely, lovely looking cereal. It's full of apples, cinnamon, plumped up raisins, add a little cream, and there you've got it.